I want to talk to you even just beyond the music and get to know you as Mark Ronson, as the person and not the producer, the artist.
Okay.
So what's a life lesson that you have that you would want to pass along to your fans? Something that happened in your life that it was like, wow, that really changed my life perspective, or something you learned about yourself?
I think something that I learned, that you hear a lot of things sometimes that sound like cliches, but the reason they're cliches is because they've been said 1,000 times, and it's sort of true. And I think with, before I really had my first success as a producer, and it came kind of late to me. It wasn't until I was like 30, 31. I've been making music since I was 18, and definitely thinking like, shit, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, and seeing other people that were my peers, that we all started off at the same about time, sort of, rocket past me, and it definitely makes you second guess yourself on what you're supposed to be doing. I think there were two things. I think I loved music so much I couldn't really imagine doing anything else, and B, I was willing to work as hard or whatever it took to sort of get it and put in the work. I was really fortunate to meet Amy Winehouse, who was obviously an incredible talent and would have made an incredible album with anybody, but it was the fact that I met her and we were sort of just left alone a bit in a room to make the music that we really liked. And the first time that her label came to hear the song and heard the demo of Rehab, he starts going crazy after 10 seconds. I just played a shitty demo and he's like, "Bo, bo, bo," like firing shots like we're in the club. And I was like, "Oh," and he was like, I just knew we really loved it and we were doing what we really loved. I didn't think for a second it would be commercial because it didn't sound like anything else on the radio. Like, it kind of taught me a lesson, that being my first success, that like, you can only really do the things that you really love, because that's the only time it's really going to sound, it's going to make an impact or be special or stand out. So all I would just say is, like, without trying to sound all like follow your dreams, it's just like, if you're doing something that you love and it feels good and it feels right to you, like, that's the thing to follow.
So a couple things I want to stem off, just even with that response alone. So you said you were doing music for years and years, and it wasn't until in your early 30s that you reached that success. So did you ever find yourself trying to make music that was more commercial and what you thought other people wanted? And when did you snap out of that, when you were like, okay, I have to do just what's in my heart?
I think in the beginning, even though I hadn't really maybe had success, I had a few albums that came out. So like the record that I worked on with this girl Nika Costa and my first single, Ooey with Ghostface, those were definitely things that I was just making because I liked them, You always see that scene in the movie where, like, the guys stop returning your phone calls, or like, the secretary hears your name and he's like, "Tell him I'm not here." Like, that literally happened to me. And so of course you're like, you start to doubt yourself and you're like, oh, well, maybe if I make something that sounds a little bit more like Neptunes or this thing, but I'll never be as good as the Neptunes at making things that sound like the Neptunes, that's for sure. So I just, I kind of like, I went through probably a little bit of a phase and just was lucky enough to have like a sort of like, like a little bit of taking internal stock and a bit of a wake-up call of what I needed to do.
Okay. What are your thoughts? There's a lot of artists out there who they're all about, okay, I need to get signed to a label, or I need that one hit to be like that one hit wonder. So what do you have to say about overnight success for those people who think like once you get that one thing, you blow up?
If somebody had told me when I was 23, like, okay, you can make music for 10, 15 years and you're not really guaranteed like anything. You might do okay, you might not. Or you can have a giant record when you're 31 and then you gotta retire forever. I mean, I'm not lying. I'd probably have taken the one like 31 and I'll retire forever, There's never a full guarantee when you're making music that people are gonna love what you're doing. But I think that because of the way people consume music, and you look at people like Chance the Rapper, you look at Action Bronson, who, although now he has an album out, like, they were selling out like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 seat venues with no radio play, just only on mixtapes. It's never been an easier time to sort of get noticed, I mean, maybe none of us will ever like sort of cash those sort of Mariah Carey, Bon Jovi checks again. That era of the music industry is done, but that's not why you do it anyway. You do it because you love the music, and I think that you do that and you cultivate a fan base and you offer something people different that's not out there already. That's what's going to win you those fans. That's what's going to get 1,000, 1,500 people to come to your shows. And you don't have to be on, you know, radio or TV on some of those more like, you know, kind of things that we always associate with like being a success.
Okay. My last question, something you said with your interview with Ryan, was you talked about how you went to email Stevie Wonder's manager and you're like, what do I have to lose? So let's just talk a little bit about what you said. You don't have anything to lose by doing that, by trying, because there's some people who won't even take that leap of faith to try something because they fear rejection so much instead of just trying. So what do you have to say, like, just what built that courage to make you just actually do it, even if you were going to get rejected?
I mean, I think for me, it was probably 20 years of rejection has definitely thickened my skin somewhat. But I mean, there's no, I mean, you think of the biggest bands in the world and whatever, Wu-Tang were turned down by 13 labels before they got signed to Loud. Bill Withers, whoever you want to name, every artist was rejected by somebody. So that's something that I think if, you know, somebody's like looking at getting into a career in the music business, like you better just learn to deal with the rejection, whatever it means that you like, you know, however you deal with it, that's something that everybody needs to kind of get to terms with a little bit.